I might have just screwed up the Facebook Live. Trying to work out. Okay, it's live now. Okay, I'm gonna start.
Is because we count on being able to watch these when we're not fully present. We need to watch them second time around. Makes it
Sure. I can't really hear you, but I'm gonna start now. Midori. Om Gyan Timarandasya Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Namo Vishnu Padaya Gauraprastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Vanaiti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyamane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripasindhuvayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasali Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Bol. So thank you everyone for coming. This is our second session. And we're, I guess, for everyone who started on the same day, we'll be in the third day of our cleanse now. I know a lot of people are starting a little bit later, so they might be maybe on their first day or second day. And some people I know haven't even started yet and are going to rewatch this. So I hope this can help embellish what we're already learning so far. So when you're ready, you're welcome to begin. Nimai, Caitanya.
I'm ready.
Go for it.
So, Haribol, everybody, Dandavat Pranams. Gurave Gaurachandra Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhattaya. So yeah, I'd like to just go over a few things about couple different topics today that I thought would be helpful, and also answer any questions that you may have. And I think we have about 10 people on the call now.
Yeah, and a few watching live on Facebook as well.
Let's see. I mean, often I'd like to just check in with people and hear how they're doing. It's not a huge group, so we could do that. But it would really only be if everybody just spoke, 30 seconds to a minute at the most. Just kind of checking in, and then we can open up some questions afterward. Does that sound okay?
That sounds really good. Yeah. I also want to preface that because it's live and it's being recorded. Anyone who doesn't want to speak, that's absolutely fine.
So do you just call people and, or how about we'll just put up their thumbs? You can see everybody if they want to share something. Just the question is how you're doing, where you are with the cleanse right now. And if you have any specific questions, and I'll keep those in mind as you go along. I'll answer them more at the end.
Does anyone want to volunteer to speak first? 30 seconds to a minute on how the cleanse is going for them so far, just checking in.
I'll go first.
Okay, I see. Okay, so Davey, you can go first, and then just keep your hands raised, guys, and I'll just pick you as it goes.
Okay, then how about so I started on Sunday because my week starts on a Sunday, so that was quite nice to do. So I'm just in the second day, but the resources are really great and the recipes are really nice. I'm not at work this couple of days, so that's been really good. So the next few days will be more challenging because I'll be at work, but I've made my food
Wonderful, Tsunami. Good for you.
Thank you. Okay, next, Shobarani Didi. You want to speak next? Haribol.
Haribol, Haribol. Well, it's my, I'm finishing now second day. It's great. It's good. It's a bit strange feeling because my stomach is not full. But I look forward, no? These exercises I looked for tomorrow, the tiger swans, they seem nice. I
Nice,
was
aren't they?
laughing, like when your stomach went like this, I can't. I wanted to ask, this. I like sweets. Now 2 days I don't eat sweets. Maybe something just for whatever is possible now during this, some sweet maybe if you can share with us. And thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. No?
Very welcome.
Yeah, that's it.
You're
Haribol.
curious about some sweet options or sweet things you can do during the cleanse. Is that right?
Yes,
All right, we'll talk about that a little bit.
yes. And yes, I remember I'm not, I'm from Slovenia. If possible, maybe the book you have, if on PDF or something to send, maybe is it possible?
Okay.
Please, I would be grateful.
Have anything like that, like on Kindle or like a digital version? We can.
Yeah, please, yeah.
No, they don't have that there.
No, we can't get here any book like this.
Write to Rune and we'll figure something out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Haribol.
You're both.
Haribol. Okay, I'm gonna ask Midori next.
Haribol. So I do, first of all, I'm loving it because I'm eating more regularly than I do. I'm finding that one smoothie completely fills me up and I don't feel like eating anything else all day. So I'm trying to regulate eating. And I'm having problems. I don't think I can do bananas. I don't think I can do any sweet. I don't even think I can do stevia. And the other thing too is I really need to know, I want to try the khichdi with quinoa, and I don't know how to do that. If one prepares the quinoa first and then adds the dal, how that works. So I have to do everything I can to get all of the simple carbohydrates out of my diet. And I'm having even trouble with fruit. But really thankful because I feel very balanced on what I'm eating, which is nice. And it's giving me a sense of, you know, I could have a regular diet where I don't have to worry about what I have to prepare, which is really helpful.
Okay, I'll address those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Haripriya Dini.
Dandavats. Well, we tried to start yesterday, but our supplements that we'd ordered hadn't arrived. They've just arrived this morning, but we did have like a smoothie that as much as we could have the right things in, and a very simple steamed vegetables lunchtime and another smoothie in the afternoon, and that's all we had. I was quite surprised how filling a smoothie is, and it wasn't heavy on your stomach. So I'm looking forward to actually starting properly today with everything that we've got. So thank you very much.
Very welcome. Awesome. Sounds great.
Thank you. Who is next? Does anyone else want to go? I see Midori Didi raising her hand again, but did you have something?
No, I'm not. I have to figure out how to unraise that.
Don't worry, I'll sort it out. Done. Okay. I think everyone else maybe doesn't want to speak. I'm just going to presume that. I guess it's my opportunity to share. I had various hiccups, unfortunately, and so I sort of half started on Saturday, then messed up on Sunday. So I'm restarting today with the knowledge that my willpower is not always the strongest, but I really want to sort of grab the bull by the horns. I'm seeing a few different things have already come up that I definitely struggle with dairy a lot, and that I'm really these 8 days. I said to myself, I could continue on from what I'd done on Saturday, but I knew if I sort of half did it, I needed a strong start day. So today's been a really strong start day. And I think this cleanse is going to be a real good opportunity for me to really reduce the amount of sugar I'm having. I have a lot of sugar, even from natural sources, but still it's too much, and dairy. And yeah, I think these two things are big problems for me. So yeah, that's how I'm doing. I'm already feeling that is positive, already feeling my energy seems more balanced, even though it's early days. Dilip, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Nimai, Prabhu.
Who's this?
Thank you so much for organizing this. I'm not either really fully engaged in this. I'm just trying to hang in there at the moment. There's a major change, well, major, significant changes going on at the moment. I'm just so grateful to have this opportunity to be in this cleanse with you all. I have started taking smoothies. I am making some small changes. I just wish I could do the whole thing as you're kindly guiding us and prescribing us to, but I feel that by staying with this, I could use elements of it now, and then at the right time, whether in a few days or next week, I could actually commit to doing it wholly. But I didn't want to miss the opportunity to learn something while you're giving your time so graciously. But I just, yeah, I feel like I'm not really going to benefit in the way that you would that could be achieved if I were really committed fully. I just know myself at the moment that I'm not ready to go through the whole thing right today, you know. So that's really where I am.
Okay. I'm going to say something about that in a second, but I really am glad you're here. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. It's so exciting. I really so appreciate it, like I'm sure everybody does, that you're giving your time so, you know, with all your heart. I know this means a lot to you, that we get something from this and that you want to contribute this. It means a lot to me. And so I want to just engage to whatever level I can. Hanging in there is what I would say right now. But yes, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to share anything?
I think everyone else is a bit shy, so I think maybe unless
Sign up for something at another time, or you know, it's fine. Okay. If anybody see anybody, Tarun, who wants to share something, then just let us know. Okay. You good?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just respond to a couple of these comments, and then we'll dive into a couple other things. Sudevi, great, keep going. As far as sweets go, you know, it's a big topic, really, because on the one hand, you know, sweet is a natural taste, and it's something that in a balanced diet, it is one of the tastes, and it's a necessary taste. It's nourishing, it's building, has its healing properties, the sweet taste. In our culture, we overdo it. And of course, with
Haribol, can people hear me? Haribol? Can people reply if they can hear
I
me?
can hear you, Charan Prabhu.
Okay,
I couldn't hear Nimai Prabhu
Yeah.
for a few.
We
okay.
can hear you, Tarun, even though I wrote your name has something garbled on chat, but yes. Nimai disappeared.
Okay, I think his internet's just cut out, and I think in just a moment he'll come back.
When he does, he was speaking on sweets,
Yes.
options for sweets.
Mhm. I'm gonna send him a message now.
Hopefully he'll know he's cut out as well. That would be good.
I hope he's not still talking. There's no way.
Hope so.
But in the meantime, I think everyone just has to bear with. If he doesn't reply, in a sec I'll call him. Sorry, just having a tiny cleanse snack. Yeah. I think it's been tough for a lot of people to commit to this cleanse is a theme I'm seeing, but he's back. Okay. No need for my ramblings.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened.
Don't worry. You were talking about sugar.
Okay. All right. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me?
Yes. Very good.
Yeah, my internet here sometimes is a little funny. I just turned off my other source. Yeah, so sugar, it's a natural food, but on the other hand, it can be problematic. So if you are a sweet person, and that tends to be one of your, your go-tos, it's a big conversation because it could be a lot of different reasons. But one of the things that I always mention is, and I think Tarun, you were kind of touching on it, where if you identify that sort of those areas that you want to focus on, it's a really good thing. So Tarun was saying dairy and sugar. So for someone else, it may be just sugar. For someone else, it may be dairy. There are, like when we do cleanses, it's somebody, I remember I had one client, she was drinking 12 cups of coffee a day. That was her thing that she really had to overcome and that she really wanted to get a grip on during the cleanse. So if sweet is your thing, then on the one hand, take a look at it and focus on minimizing it. And if you do want some alternatives or things that you can kind of, go to a little bit, I would go toward the berries, like the dark berries, like blueberries, raspberries, like that. I wouldn't go to dried fruit. That could be super, people can eat a ton of dried fruit. But that's really what I would go for. And one nice thing too, the smoothie is sweet. For those of you that like, the sweet smoothie, with the berries, and often it has, some kind of, stevia or something. And one person, I think it was Maduri, said that even stevia, for some people, even stevia doesn't work. I would say, 90 out of 100 stevia is fine, but there are those that it doesn't work really well for them. So minimize the sweet as much as possible. Keep it in a balanced way. Too much, a little bit of sweet nourishes the pancreas. too much sweet kind of blows it out. So that's why, certainly in the early days, I don't know what's happening now, but a lot of devotees were getting hypoglycemic and, you know, type 2 diabetes, because in temple life there was so much dairy and so much sugar, especially. And so it was really impacting people's health. So that's important. Madhuri, you'd mentioned about quinoa. Yeah, it will cook a little bit quicker than rice. So if you want to cook the quinoa first, you can do that. Or you can, if you soak the mung for a few hours, it will make the mung cook quicker also. So you could actually cook it together. So if you don't cook them, if you don't soak the mung, say overnight, which you don't typically have to do, but it will make it cook faster, then I would cook the quinoa separate and the mung separate, and then mix it together afterwards. So that's a really a good way of doing it. And then I can also send out a document. I sent it to Yashoda, but I don't think I sent it to everybody here. It's a document, or maybe I did. It's a document that decreases the glycemic index, or how quickly the body breaks down the rice into sugar. It slows it down quite a bit. It's a little technique that can be used. And also there's a way of reducing arsenic, because these days, Kali Yuga rice, probably every food in Kali Yuga has its challenges due to Kali Yuga itself. And one of them is also rice, unfortunately, where a lot of rice tends to be fairly high in arsenic. And that's because the rice, you know, sits in water for a long time. So if there's metals or toxins in the water, it you know, is exposed to that grain longer, so therefore it can be absorbed more efficiently.
Nimai, how much quinoa to use?
You would use a similar recipe, similar amount as in the rice recipe.
Wow,
So,
a whole cup of quinoa?
well,
Okay.
if you're gonna, I mean, you might want to, those recipes, by the way, are kind of big, so you might want to reduce the whole recipe in half. So
And
half quinoa.
And I did not see the one for reducing the gluten in the rice, and I would like that very much. I think I need that. Not the gluten, the glycemic qualities, and the gluten. Thank you.
If you think of it, Madhuri, Didi, if you could put that on the Total Life Cleanse chat, that'd be great. And then, Priya Didi, that's great that you're feeling, you know, light from the smoothie. You know, use a smoothie during the cleanse as much as you want. I mean, I do recommend you have one meal a day. It's not the worst thing in the world to do 2 smoothies, and if you're satisfied with that, leave it at that. You can do that. But typically, you know, during the cleanse, it's not just a smoothie cleanse in the sense that the idea behind it too is to also, you know, learn or practice eating and cooking really healthy as well. Especially like this is a short cleanse, so you can kind of get away with it more. But like in our 5-week cleanse, then we really want people preparing their own food, because, you know, it's not just about cleansing, it's also about how we live. So that's the emphasis there. And Prabhu, that's great that you're focused and you're getting, you know, you got identified your challenges. That's really good. You know, one thing is that, you know, dairy's, you know, obviously a very controversial topic. It's even controversial with devotees. There's the vegan devotees, there's the non-vegan devotees. And, you know, of course, we know what Srila Prabhupada said about dairy, and the Vedic understanding of dairy and the right use of dairy. You know, how it can feed the higher centers of the brain to understand the higher principles of life. Having said that, it's Kali Yuga. So we're dealing with dairy from very sick, miserable cows, you know, eating unhealthy GMO corn and soy, things like that. So there's a lot of issues. The other issue that I think a lot of devotees know, but some don't, is the A2, A1 protein factor, which for me was very important. because I've always been very sensitive to dairy since I was an infant. And I've always liked dairy, but I didn't really identify it as being a problem. It was identified when I was an infant, and then I had dairy most of my life and had lung and allergy issues. And then in college, I gave up dairy for a while, and it made a huge difference. But over the years, I've tried different things. I remember, living on Nagri and pretty much thinking for sure I'm going to be able to have this dairy because these cows are happy cows. I mean, we would just call their name in the morning and they would come trotting to get milked. It was, these are peaceful, happy cows that were when I was there at the time. And I think my ability to digest that milk was better, but having said that, it still was problematic to a degree. So whether it was raw milk, milk from happy cows, milk from healthy cows, it was still challenging. So I just kind of figured that in this life, I must have been a horrible animal killer or something in a previous life where, I deserve not to be able to drink dairy. But having said that, I did discover a few years ago the A2, A1 phenomena, where there's a protein called beta-casein A1 and beta-casein A2. And most of the hybridized cows, the cows that, they've brought together to basically create a cow that's like a milk-making machine, like the Holstein cows, for instance, in America, where these cows are just designed for milk production. And there are those in India, like in the Ayurvedic community, who don't actually consider them cows. They actually, some of them say they call them pig cows. So they've been so changed genetically that, for the purpose of milking, that it's almost like a derangement. But anyway, they have a lot of what's called beta-casein A1. That's a protein it's a type of casein. And that protein structure is such that when the human body breaks it down like a protein strand is made up of a bunch of amino acids. Okay, so casein is a protein, has all these amino acids that make up that casein. When the body breaks it down in chunks. So in what's called a peptide, and a peptide is like chunks of amino acids that get broken down, and then the body will then break down those into individual amino acids. But when the body breaks down things into the peptides, the shorter strands of amino acids, sometimes it doesn't break it down all the way. In fact, for many people, it doesn't. And those peptides, some of them, like in beta-casein A1, one of those peptides is called casomorphine. And casomorphine is literally a form of morphine. So what does morphine do? It makes everything sluggish and slow. And so casomorphine is one reason why many people are very sensitive to dairy. The original Ayurvedic cows, or the cows from India, the white big hump cows, those are all A2 cows. And that protein structure, beta-casein A2, is very close to human mother's breast milk, where the beta-casein A1 has an amino acid that makes it different, which makes it more toxic or difficult to digest for many people. So, I've always wondered, years ago in Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is never wrong. I mean, there's nothing, I've never found anything that's absolutely scientifically been proven to be inaccurate. But I always did wonder about the milk thing. And I also wondered about the wheat thing. And there is an explanation, and that, my understanding, is that along with, yes, the milk of the cow reflects the consciousness of the cow in a sense, or the happiness level of the cow. So that's going to make a difference. And the cows that are A2 have a different protein structure in the milk, which makes it much more digestible for human beings. And it's closer to human mother's breast milk. So it's pretty amazing in that way. So a lot of people have dairy, so then back to my experience, where when I discovered A2, this was a farm in Ohio, and I connected with this guy, and he was very nice. He made me an overnight package, and he sent me sour cream and cheese and milk and yogurt, and froze it, sent it overnight. And I hadn't had a glass of milk in 20 years. I mean, I'd had a little bit on a farm here and there, but I mean, I would, like a kid, I would drink a whole glass of milk. So I did it intentionally. I drank a glass of milk this big at night, which is crazy to do anyway, just to see what would happen. And the next morning I felt fine, which completely blew my mind, because normally I would have been very congested and, like gunky in my sinuses and heavy-headed and that type of thing. And I felt fine. So I realized, there was something to it, and I've kept researching it. In my book, there's a whole section on dairy and on the A1, the A2 phenomena. And it also validated beta in the sense that the cows that they were talking about, that the sages that were talking about thousands of years ago, they were talking about those cows, the A2 cows, which have a protein structure similar to human mother's breast milk. So again, Ayurveda was right. It's, it's the Kali Yuga situation, which does complicate it for people. I mean, that's been my experience in my practice, where, and many people think they're lactose intolerant. They think, oh, I can't drink milk because of lactose. But I found in my practice that probably, actually more people are sensitive to beta casein A1 than they are even to lactose. So it's not really something that, oh, I can't drink milk. They think, oh, it's lactose automatically. In many cases, it's the protein structure. So that's something on milk. Oh, and the other point that I wanted to make for Sriman Prabhu mentioning cheese, in my book, I mentioned this. It's, and there's a guy, Dr. Neil Barnard, some of you might know him. He's an avid vegan, really, I mean, some of these, bless them, they have no understanding about the Vedic culture, but they do see what's happening politically. They see what's happening in the industry, and they understand some of the health problems due to the industry and the nature of the modern day milk. But he calls it cheese crack, meaning like an addiction, and it's because of beta casein A1 is very concentrated in cheese. And if you're having A1 cheese, then you're going to get a lot of the casomorphine, which is addictive. So another reason people are very addicted to cheese and to milk is because of the beta casein A1. If it's beta casein A2, it's going to be less addictive because you're not going to get that casomorphine in there. So that's really interesting. By the way, goat cheese is A2, monkey cheese, camel cheese, a lot of the, but of course we're not going to be eating all of those. But it's an important point, and it's something just to think about. There are places that are making A2 milk, A2 cheese, and you can kind of look around for that. Go online and see what's in your area. There's a couple of farms in America that are doing it, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, a lot of people who found that they could barely drink milk find that they can actually use dairy products in that way if they want to. And Prabhu, yes, you had mentioned about you're just kind of showing up. I think it's great. I love when people just show up, because hopefully everyone who's here, whether you do the cleanse 100% or are here just to learn something and check it out, of course, the more you can lean into it, the better, from my perspective. But if you're not able to fully do it right now, please take advantage of, picking up on some things. And maybe, I always think that, if we ever give our attention to something, if we even pick up a couple pearls, I call them pearls, something that you learn, something you benefit from, something that you can take with you into your life related to your health and body, mind. That's a good thing. So that's what I'd like to say about that. Any questions or comments?
I guess I have a question. You kind of took it right out of my head.
Okay.
I was gonna ask about goat's cheese or sheep's cheese.
Uh-huh.
So I wanted to, because yeah, I wanted to, so I guess number one, I want to ask about sheep's cheese. Is that A2 as well?
Yeah, yeah.
Number two, what's the general opinion? I mean, I'm guessing on the cleanse, it's we're cutting that out as well, but I'm happy to do that. But after the cleanse, I'm wondering what you think, because I eat a lot of goat's cheese to avoid eating cow's cheese, which I know I have reactions to.
Yeah, so definitely in terms of digestion, the goat or the sheep would be easier than unless you can find cow cheese coming from A2 cows, which is possible. You might want to poke around and see if you can find anything in your area like that. And then yes, during the cleanse, we don't recommend. The cleanse we're really recommending for the most part, eliminating dairy, except for a little bit of ghee, 100%. And that give the body a break, because that's also part of the cleanse, right? It's, the cleanse we're meant to simplify and lighten things up. Dairy is a very nourishing, building food. When we're cleansing, we're not so much focusing on nourishing and building, we're kind of simplifying and letting the body have a break. So we don't recommend dairy during the cleanse. But after the cleanse, it's good information then to play around with, better for you and what doesn't. So for you, probably sticking with the A2 version of cheese, wherever it's coming from, is better.
Okay, thank you so much. Hari Priya Diddy, you're up next.
Haribol. Yeah, I from birth I also had a problem with milk, that they thought I had a blockage in my stomach, but I take it a little bit every now and then, but if I have too much, I can wake up in the night and I can't hardly swallow. It dries out my whole system. Plus also I find coconut cream or coconut milk, even if it's organic, I get a similar reaction. So does that have similar things in it that the A1 milk has?
I don't think coconut does, although, based doshic wise, they're both kapha inducing. Coconut is kapha inducing, as is dairy. And A1 dairy would be more so than A2. So there may be, that aspect to it. I mean, it's funny, like I know, I've seen it before where, I've seen it with devotees. I've also seen it even in the West too, where, we hear about, of course, in the West, it's like, we hear about the benefit of coconut water. So that all of a sudden someone's drinking, 10 glasses of coconut water a day. And sometimes it can make people really nauseous or sluggish because it's actually kapha inducing, and so even coconut water, too much of it can make someone nauseous. And we think of it, it's just high in trace minerals, it's really hydrating, and it is. We shouldn't be drinking coconut water all day long, which is, sometimes we hear about the benefits of something and think, a little is good, then a lot is even better. That's not the case. But yeah, so it's interesting that you have that experience with coconut. Could have something to do with the richness, the nature of it being kapha inducing, the happiness of the quality of it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Midori is next, and then we have another question as well that someone submitted.
Yeah, Nimai, you do have low-fat kefir listed in the cleanse. So since this talk about dairy, I'm wondering about that.
Yeah, that's more of a in the 28-day cleanse. We often have that as a transitional food for people that are really into dairy, and it's because kefir is such a good balance of healthy bacteria. So it's such a good culture and it also has many digestive benefits. For a post cleanse or as a transitional dairy, coming off of regular dairy. I mean, remember, we have people here who are eating ice cream every night before bed. They're drinking glasses of milk. They're putting cream in their coffee. So I always like to have something transitional. So you, of course, so yeah, so you saw that, but for the 8-day, I don't really recommend it as much as possible. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's great. Thanks.
Mm. The next question is from Sudevi, and she is asking, what is your opinion about maple syrup, in brackets, in moderation, of course?
So Sudevi was the one who was, oh no, that was Sudevi who was asking about the sugar. For the cleanse, I don't recommend it. Again, if we're doing a longer cleanse and someone's really going into it slowly and they're coming from using a lot of white refined sugar for a couple of days, it may be okay as a transition. I mean, and if you're using maple syrup in your life, the least refined, the better. A lot of the maple syrups these days now, they used to have all these different gradations, and I think you can still get it, but now typically what they're putting out there most of the stores is the more refined version. And the more refined it is means less minerals, less nutrients that maple syrup actually has in it. So maple syrup in small amounts is okay post-cleanse, but I would say during the cleanse as much as possible. No. It is one of those things that people can really overuse, so you have to be careful with it. If you're having pancakes, what do people do? Just pour it on and smear it everywhere. It's dripping on the side. So, and even like agave syrup, when agave syrup first came out, it was considered to be the next best thing because it was natural and it was coming from the plants, but it's very, very high in fructose. And that fructose can, in high amounts or in regular amounts, can actually cause what's called fatty liver. It's not good for the liver. So agave syrup in the 5-week cleanse, we sort of use that as a transitional sweetener. Again, only if someone's coming from drinking a ton of sugar or drinking, having a lot of sugar. But for the most part, it should be used very rarely. As an exception. I mean, if you have a little agave syrup once or twice a week, okay, fine. But if if you're starting to put agave into your tea, and a tablespoon of agave syrup every day into your tea, eventually that could be a problem. Actually, like coconut sugar would be better, or even gore, unrefined regular sugar is better than that because of the combination of fructose and sucrose. Fructose can be very stressful on the liver.
And sucrose, is that better?
Well, no, it's not better. It's just that it's it's different.
Okay.
It doesn't cause fatty liver as much. It has other problems. It would be more of a blood sugar thing, causing more stress, sort of in the diabetes realm.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
The other reality is if we pull back on sweet, then what happens is we'll start developing more of one of the benefits of the cleanse is to clear the palate to some degree. So that, at the end of a cleanse, if you have a blueberry, and it'll taste really good and really sweet. But in the beginning of the cleanse, you might be bored with a blueberry. But by the end of it, it might be, wow, this is really amazing. It's got so many different, it's got sour, it's got sweet, and it's a little astringent. You can really taste it, really appreciate it. So clearing the palate is a really good idea. I remember that one of the first cleanse I did, it was like a 5-week cleanse, and I went to a party and I wasn't doing cookies or anything like that, but they had fruit salad. And I had some fruit salad, and it was the most amazing experience, having that fruit salad, where before the cleanse, I would have thought, oh, that's boring. I want the cookies and the cakes and the chocolates and the things like that. But the fruit salad was so delicious and it was exotic and amazing, because I had cleared the palate, and, it was pretty amazing. So that is a benefit of the cleanse, to pull back, clear the palate, and give your senses a chance to rewind a little bit, and to settle down. And then also, that's a benefit of conscious eating too. We're really letting yourself taste what you're eating. Slow down enough to taste it. It's important. Anything else? Any other questions?
I don't think we have any right now.
Okay. Yeah, so I thought maybe it would be interesting to talk a little bit about some of the basic principles of health. I think I mentioned this last in one of the talks that I gave, the essential principles of Ayurveda. I'd like to touch on those, and then maybe just say a couple things about the lungs, and we'll take it from there. So these are, you could say the cleanse is based on this, and a lot of Ayurveda is based on these principles. And a lot of people think of Ayurveda, I mean, not necessarily devotees, but in general in society, they think, oh, it's all about my body type, Maya Vata, Maya Pitta, Maya Kapha, and that's what I am, and then I have to figure out what to eat. And that's true. That's obviously a big part of, Ayurvedic recommendations, but there's other principles that are there that, because we as devotees, I think, have more of an appreciation for, but it is a good reminder, I think. So the first one that I like to talk about is just prana, vital life energy. And, the body, the human body, is an energy creating machine. And that prana is inside the body, and it's also coming from the outside in. And we have nadis, we have, I'm trained as an acupuncturist, so I think of it too. So we have, even the skin pulls in prana from the outside. You call it bioelectric energy, you can call it prana, you can call it chi. It's pulling energy in, and that prana is also moving in five main directions. So there's downward prana, and each of these pranas have a physical, mental, and emotional component to it, even spiritual, you could say. So downward moving prana helps us eliminate poop and pee and like that, give birth. It also helps us to be grounded, like having our feet on the ground. It also helps us to let go of negativity, mentally and emotionally. So that downward moving prana has these different components to it. And then we have the outward moving prana. And it has to do with physical, has to do with circulation, like the blood circulating. But it also, because it's outward, it has to do with open-mindedness. It has to do with expansion, being expansive and open, and extending your energy outward. And it even has to do with the immune system, in the sense that if someone's outward moving prana is very pulled in, then we might be more vulnerable to negative energies around us mentally. So, if you walk into a room and there's a lot of negative people and negative energy, someone with a weak outward moving prana might become more affected by that. And then there's it's called samana prana, which is in the belly. So that has to do with the flow of prana that impacts digestion. And digestion means transformation of what we take into the body and make it into tissues of the body. So, but it also has to do with harmony and balance. And what do we take in? What do we digest in life? What do we let go in life? That kind of thing. How are we processing our day-to-day experiences? And then there's upward moving prana. That's a really interesting problem. So physically, it literally keeps the body upward. I mean, you know, if based on the laws of gravity, which there's all kinds of controversies around that, but just based on that, if gravity alone won, then we would just be a puddle, you know. But we actually have a force that makes us go upward, just like a tree. Even though there's gravity, the tree is going upward. So we have a, but if we have a very low upward moving prana, and we might always be slouching over, you know, or we might have our shoulders might be rounded all the time. We might not, and then emotionally, we may not express ourselves. Because an upward moving prana has to do with taking what's in here and letting it come out. So we may not be very communicative. We may not assert ourselves very well. But that upward moving prana is also about, you know, what is the goal of the living entity? You know, so it can be used for fulfilling material goals, but also spiritual goals. And it said it is that prana that the yogi uses to determine their destiny. So we good?
Yeah, you can start now.
I was talking about the upward moving prana. Is that right? Okay. So the upward moving prana literally helps the physical body stay upward instead of slouched over, humped over like that. But it also has to do with, you know, actually has to do with self-expression. And, you know, speaking, it has a lot to do with the throat chakra, speaking your truth, speaking directly, that kind of energy. If someone's very shy and internal, that upward moving prana could be a little weak. But like I said, it has also to do with the destination of the soul once it leaves the body. And then, of course, the inward moving prana has to do with directing the energy inward. Physically, it has to do more with the prana in the senses, in the eyes, and the ears, and the nose, like that. But we also understand that we can direct our energy internally. And that's just a concept that, you know, your average human being doesn't even know. You know, there's a lot of sayings that, you know, just go within and, you know, go inside yourself. And yeah, it's sweet and cute and nice, but there's not really an understanding. Well, literally, we can direct our energy internally, and literally we know that we are the soul and that there's actually the super soul. And even when we're doing our sadhana, you know, sometimes when we're going deep, it's as if we're coming from within when we're chanting, as opposed to it being, you know, an external process. Even though we're chanting outwardly, it's coming from within. Our attention is directed internally. And when we're hearing Hari Katha, that's another version of, you know, that's our inward moving prana is in receptive mode. So when we're receiving something, that's also inward moving prana. So it can be on many levels. That's my main point. So prana, and then when prana is obstructed in some way, the prana also feeds every cell of the body, all the tissues, all the glands, everything, and on the nadis and the channels are these bioelectric channels that run through the whole system. When those get blocked by a couple things, Agni, when Agni is poor, that means when the fire of digestion is weak, whether that's physical Agni of this digestion, whether it's the Agni in the cell itself, whether it's the Agni in the brain and the mind, then we're not able to transform energy very well, and that energy becomes stagnant. Another main reason why prana becomes deranged is due to toxins, and they can be physical toxins. Things like heavy metals, like a heavy metal is simply a mineral. It's in the same category as calcium, magnesium, zinc, you know, all the good minerals that we know of, but it's big and it's a toxin. So mercury, cadmium, lead, arsenic, these are considered heavy metals, and they're like bullies on the walls of the cells. And this world is contaminated pretty heavily with heavy metals. And they're a real toxin. For some people, they're a huge problem. I do hair analysis with patients a lot. And you'd be amazed at how many people come back with very high levels of mercury. And many people think, oh, it must be the mercury amalgams in their mouth. It's more because of eating fish. Fish are so toxic and so filled with heavy levels of mercury that these people have, literally, it's pouring out of their body. And, you know, they become very toxic. And mercury is carcinogenic. It can affect the nerve system. It can affect digestion. It can have so many negative impacts down the road. Aluminum is another big one. So, you know, these heavy metals interfere with the bioelectrical communication of the cells in the body. So it interferes with the prana. And when a cell doesn't get healthy prana, it becomes deranged, it becomes sick. And eventually that cell goes from being a little bit weak, a little not very energized, to a completely deranged cell, and that's a cancer cell. When a cell has kind of gone mad, when it really doesn't, you know, it's like when we don't get love, we go crazy. When the cell doesn't get love, it goes crazy eventually, you know? So it's a cell gone mad. So there's toxins, chemicals, heavy metal, pesticides, all kinds of things. Kali Yuga, we are in Kali Yuga. You know, we're more exposed to toxins now than in any other age. It's just the way it is. One reason why in Kali Yuga our lives typically are not, you know, over 100 years old. Where in other ages we understand that 1,000, 10,000 years is possible, but not in Kali Yuga, very, very unusual for it to be a long time. And then we have Ojas, which has to do with the immune system. And Ojas is basically the essence, the energetic essence of our strength. It is said to be located in the heart and the ovaries and the testes. It's like the essence of the power of our immune system. So Ojas is depleted when we overuse our senses, when we don't sleep, you know, too much eating, too much sense indulgence, too much sex, you know, too much anything can burn out Ojas. And a very, very sweet thing in Ayurveda is compassion and kindness is said to increase Ojas. So it's literally a remedy for low Ojas is to be kind and compassionate. Now we may think of, okay, that's a mundane thing as devotees, right? We know that, but right, but still, you know, having compassion, well, that's not mundane, but you know, being good to others, being kind, being thoughtful, being giving of yourself, being truthfully philanthropic. I mean, so many, we have Kali Yuga philanthropists that use their, you know, their so-called, you know, organizations for the benefit of humanity that really they're just funneling money and causing great problems for humanity in the name of philanthropy. And actually in the Bhagavatam in the 5th canto, it describes someone who uses philanthropy in a sinful way, goes to one of the hellish planets. Because it's very wrong, obviously. I'm going off on a little stint here, but I just learned this recently, is one of the hellish planets is literally for somebody who uses philanthropy and cheats people with it. It's a major sin. Very, very prominent in Kali Yuga. Oh, I have this organization that look like I'm doing so many good things, but in reality, I'm doing so many simple things with it. Anyway, so yeah, Ojas is very important, and it's a big part of the immune system. Ojas basically protects us from being sick, and if someone gets sick, someone's Ojas, the strength of their Ojas will determine how they recover, how quickly they can recover. Some people come into this life with stronger Ojas than others. That's just the way it is. So when we know kind of what our situation is, then we have to be a little bit more careful. Like some people, when I was in college, I had friends that could stay up all night and party their brains out and then go play a soccer game the next day. No problem. I tried to do it a few times and it almost killed me. I couldn't do it. You know, I didn't have it in me. I had no energy. I was zapped. I felt horrible. Well, I had friends who they could just do it. Different constitution, different body types. I mean, I look back and I'm glad that I couldn't do it, but back then I wasn't so glad. So we all have different constitutions. We come in with different constitutions. We have come in with different degrees. In Chinese medicine, it's called ancestral qi. You know, the qi of the mother and father and the consciousness of the time of birth and who you are as a soul. All those things come together, and that determines, you know, what your constitution is at birth. And that generally doesn't change, but we can do the best, you know, we can make the best use of the bargain that we got by understanding basic principles of health, one of which is to reset and cleanse twice a year. So, you know, and again, in Kali Yuga, we're exposed to so many stressors and toxins that affect not just the physical body, but the subtle body, the emotional body, and the amount of media is a toxin also. EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, these are also stressors. There are those people that are not affected by cell phones, but it's pretty rare. So, you know, there's a lot of conversation about, you know, 5G and all that. Some people are going to get really whacked out by it, and some people not so. So, you know, protecting ourselves is important. And, you know, I think of, you know, sort of interesting sometimes that in Kali Yuga, the ether element is so contaminated with with toxic sound vibration and thought forms and, you know, EMFs and all these frequencies that are everywhere. But what is the remedy? The remedy is also the sound. The remedy is the holy name. You know, so the holy name is, yes, we shouldn't be chanting to protect ourselves, you know, physically. We shouldn't be thinking, I'm just going to chant so I can, but it's true. I really believe it, that chanting the holy name with concentration is a very, very powerful force for our health, mentally, physically, for our immune system. It's very, very important. And it's a medicine on every level, from the most basic all the way, you know, developing the love of God. It is the medicine that's most appropriate for Kali Yuga. It just makes a lot of sense on every level. Not to mention it's being given to us by Caitanya Mahaprabhu and our guru and our acharyas. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that and those basic principles of Ayurveda. And you know, then we have the elements and the organs. I'll touch on just real quickly, and then if anybody has any questions, on the lungs, because we're in the fall right now, and every organ is connected to a season, a time of day, and an emotion. So the season that the fall is connected to the air element. In Chinese medicine, it's called the metal element, which is related to the lungs and the large intestine. And what that means is that that organ in that season is emphasized, meaning if that organ is balanced, then it'll be more balanced. If that organ has some imbalances, it'll manifest. It could manifest its imbalances more so. So supporting the lungs and the large intestine this time of year is a really good idea, because if this is not a good time of year to be drinking a lot of milk and having a lot of cheese, because you want to nourish and take care of your lungs this time of year. Because we don't want to go into winter. In the winter time, the body doesn't like to let go. It holds on, it stores. So if we're putting in a lot of sugar, which is heavy and damp, if we're putting a lot of dairy, which is heavy and damp, those two things together, then we go into winter somewhat, you know, filled with mucus and, you know, too much congestion. Then it actually goes deeper in the winter. So clearing out some of that stuff in the fall gives us a better opportunity in the winter to be free of a toxic manifestation of too much kapha coming from the fall. So the fall is a really good time to nourish the lungs, to decrease dairy, to decrease sugar. It's an important time because we want to support our immune system so that in the winter we can get through it in a healthier way. So, you know, eating nourishing foods this time of year, but really minimizing the dairy makes a lot of sense. That's another reason why it's really important to do that. And then, you know, a real quick thing I just wanted to cover, that I have a favorite. You know, there's a lot of nutrients out there that people are talking about that are protective for the lungs in relationship to COVID. And one of the things that maybe you guys have heard about, the cytokine storm, which is when people get really sick with COVID, it's often a secondary phase of the COVID cycle. So if someone goes through the process and they seem to be doing okay, but then they get the second run where the immune system kicks in again. And it's often because the receptor cells, what's called the ACE receptors in the lungs, are getting damaged by whatever the heck it is, getting damaged by the, I'll call it a virus. There's controversy about whether it's a virus, whatever it is. Those ACE receptors are being impacted, which then causes a lot of inflammation in the lungs. And then if there's a hyperreaction to that assault, then what happens is the lungs start inflaming, and they develop what's called a cytokine storm, which is the body's attempt to clear something, but it's not doing it. So almost like it's a vicious cycle where it's just putting out cytokines, which are these inflammatory immune factors, but nothing's happening. So more inflammation is happening, more inflammation is happening, more inflammation is happening. So again, minimizing dairy is a good thing for your lungs. And one of my favorite nutrients is, there's a bunch out there, but one of my favorites is something called quercetin. Quercetin, you can find it, I would believe, any health food store. And it's a bioflavonoid that calms down the ACE receptors. It actually goes to the ACE receptor and it calms it down, and it prevents a hyperreaction. So like for allergies, for example, people have allergies, their mast cells and their things called mast cells, they have a hyperreaction. So quercetin is very good for calming those down too. So it's not a good time, immune system wise, to do those things that cause a lot of inflammatory immune reactions. Yeah, quercetin is Quercitin, or actually it's Quercetin. That's right, quercetin. And probably 400 or 500 milligrams twice a day is a good idea. Quercetin comes from a lot of different things, but it's a bioflavonoid. It comes, the white lining on a grapefruit, on a orange, that the bitter stuff that's high in bioflavonoids. But quercetin is one of the simplest things that we can get that can help protect the lungs and protect that hyperreaction. So I think, people often ask me, like, what's the one thing? Honestly, that's the thing that jumps to my mind. If you're going to do one thing, and there's a bunch of things you can do, but that is one thing I think everybody should have in their medicine cabinet, is some good quercetin. And it's not a bad idea to take a little bit every day now, because it's also protective. So the emotion of the lungs, by the way, is grief. So every organ, so the lungs hold grief. And, a lot of times people, say someone they love dies, and it's not that uncommon for them to get a lung infection or a bad cough after that happens. The large intestine is about letting go. And the lungs, it's described in Chinese medicine, the lungs receive the pure qi from the heavens. So when the lungs are happy and healthy and we're breathing nicely, we can take in pure energy. And it's described, this is more of a Taoist thing, but it's more like we can be more present if our lungs are, if we're breathing smoothly. If we're breathing in and out, it helps us be present. If we're holding our breath, we're usually like worried about something in the future, or obsessing about something in the past. So breathing is really important. That's why, exercising is a good idea. Walking every day and just really focusing on your breath, like more focusing on your breath and your physical body, or alternate nostril breathing, really, really good to regulate the breathing. So, these things, breath is the first superfood, so giving it its due value is important. So, yeah, I just want to touch on that. I think I'm good for that, but if anybody has any questions.
Is that question specifically on what you've just finished saying, or is that general questions on everything you've said so far?
I think at this point, if anybody has anything specific what I just said, but also general, because I'm pretty much done with what I wanted to say, except for keep going, whatever phase of the cleanse you're on. You remember the first 2 days is getting rid of stuff, then Kitri, then deeper on the greens that are coming out of it. Ask your questions on WhatsApp. I'm happy to answer those as much as possible. And just try to eat as clean as you possibly can, and just take in some of this information and utilize it to however it benefits you the most.
Thank you. I have some kind of questions on behalf of the audience along the lines of things you've just said, but there's quite a few questions submitted, and some of them are mine. The first one, you kind of touched on a second wave of coronavirus, like a secondary response. This is like a two-part question. Are you talking about like long COVID, that kind of post-viral fatigue?
Okay. No, I'm actually not.
Okay.
Many people, but that is another thing. Many people, when they get COVID, they'll get like signs like, they'll get fatigue. They might get a little congestion. They might get a dry cough. And they're, and many people, that's all that happens. They feel very fatigued, get a cough, they get over it, and they're good. That's a huge percentage of people. Some people, the cough drags on a little bit. They feel very fatigued. I was talking to someone today, his wife, never gets sick, but she got sick and she had a cough for a month. Some people, they get sick, they get a high fever, they start to feel a little better, and then all of a sudden it's like it comes in with another wave, and they start coughing really intensely, and their lungs get inflamed. And then that's when what's called the cytokine storm comes in, where their immune system it's overactive in one department and underactive in another department. The body's ability to clear out the cellular debris is diminished, and the body is still trying to kill stuff, is overactive. So at that, a great amount of inflammation in the lungs, which then causes some lung damage, and even lung scar tissue. Lung scarring can happen. And there can be some serious problems. So you want to prevent that from happening. And quercetin can be helpful in that prevention.
Yeah.
And then with long haul, which is another thing, because if someone's lungs were a little bit damaged from the experience, then their body's just going to have to work that much harder. And if their lungs have been damaged, it could be other tissues of the body too. It could be partly kidneys. It could be other tissues in the body that have been damaged to some degree. And this is where diet, acupuncture, herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, Chinese herbs come in really, really handy, because Western medicine doesn't really, they don't have much for long haul COVID at all. They don't really acknowledge, they acknowledge it to some degree, but they don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Chinese medicine has a lot to offer as far as that's concerned.
That's really interesting. I don't want to like dwell on it too long because it's not related to the cleanse, but my older brother basically has had long COVID for a year, and he's someone who's like naturally in like relatively good health. I would say someone who, although I'm not really don't know a lot about Ayurveda, but someone who I guess would be one of those people who's born with a lot of ojas, however you pronounce that word. But yeah, he's had long COVID for a year. So if you kind of had any like general advice, what would it be like in terms of recovering from that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd have to, my advice would be to find somebody who's worked with long haul COVID and identify, like I'm using right now, honestly, I'm using a lot of Chinese ones that are really effective for, you know, some people's lungs, they have this chronic dry cough, and there's literally Chinese herbal formulas that nourish the linings of the lungs.
Mm.
So the lungs need to be healed, you know, and in Western medicine, we don't have that belief that lungs can heal or tissues can heal, but, you know, there are things that can be done. So finding out what that person's symptoms are, and then recommending maybe some dietary changes and the right herbal formulas can be really helpful. And I would really recommend acupuncture too. Acupuncture can be really effective for helping people get over it.
Interesting. Would you recommend acupuncture in general for more people in terms of their health?
I think it's awesome. You know, I'm appreciating. I know some devotees think, oh, it's coming from the Nagas and it's, you know, kind of demonic because you're poking the body. But you know, they found bronze, silver, and gold acupuncture needles in southern India. And so there are scholars that believe that acupuncture began in Ayurveda, and then the Chinese developed their version of it as the Buddhists were moving out of India into Tibet and China. But it's a brilliant system, and for Kali Yuga, it works really well. It works really well, and you know, you can feel the pulse, and you can immediately know when, you know, how someone is out of balance. Be really, really effective. So yeah, but it, you know, best in conjunction with diet, with right herbs and things like that. So yeah, I recommend it.
Nice. Yeah, I think you mentioning it is another sign that I should pursue it and get that. But anyway, to divert back to the things that you were referencing, we've got a question. What can we do to support the lungs and the large intestines in these months, both on the cleanse and afterwards?
So there's the do's and the don'ts, right? We talked about some of the don'ts. This is where, you know, like foods have different properties to them. So the foods that are heavier, like, you know, the dairy, the cheeses, sugar is considered damp and wet, or damp and cold. So, you know, minimizing sugar, minimizing dairy, mucus forming foods is really important right now. So doing what you're doing right now is really important, you know, giving your body a break. And then erring on the side of eating cleaner. In other words, I think one of the things with doing a cleanse, I think, is it helps take us out of denial, you know, as if what we're putting in our body doesn't matter. So it's not about perfection, because, you know, we may not, some people will be much more disciplined than others, but leaning into like, oh, okay, I'm not going to have that creamy, milky, whatever thing just because I feel like it. I want to make sure I'm taking care of my health right now, you know? So things that kind of cut through that is quercetin, is vitamin C. Vitamin C is anti-mucus. You know, that's its anti-cough. So it's not just vitamin C, it's anti-cough. So eating lots of ginger, soups, turmeric, ginger, things like that, very beneficial. Things that are nourishing, warming, and not too heavy, really, really good. You know, sipping on lots of warm tea, really a good idea this time of year. And then, yes, there are certainly herbal formulas. There's a nice herb called astragalus, which is really good. I love triphala. Triphala is tridoshic. It eliminates excess cough also. So triphala is really good. It's a good blood purifier. Two of my favorite other herbs to have in your medicine cabinet would be andrographis, which is both a Chinese herb and an Ayurvedic herb, and something called giloy or guduchi. Guduchi is also really good. Those two are very, very good for the immune system. You could take 1 or 2 twice a day of those just to protect your immune system. And if the first sign of any sickness, or if you're feeling like run down and you're feeling like iffy, that's the time, if you feel that, that's the time to pound it. Like I would go from, 1 andrographis twice a day to, 2 andrographis 3 times a day. So andro, it's ANDRO GRAPHIS, andrographis. And then guduchi would be GUDUCHI, guduchi. It's also known as giloy, but typically in the West, we know it as guduchi. Both of them very good for the immune system. And, somebody is specifically struggling with a specific lung pattern, there are Chinese herbal formulas that are really good for that. There's formulas that are meant to increase literally just the blood circulation in the chest. Because what happens with COVID, for instance, things dry up, they inflame, they dry up. There's like micro scarring that happens, micro blood clotting that happens, and that needs to be cleared. And as long as it's still there, then people have a hard time with their energy. They don't ever feel like they're quite back to what they were. I had it early on, it was not fun. It was not fun.
Sorry, can you say that last bit again? I think your mic.
I had COVID myself early on in the very beginning, and it wasn't fun. It was intense.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that. Thank you. The next question is, okay, it's sort of like a follow-on because you mentioned Triphala just now. What time in the day for the cleanse should we be taking the Triphala?
I typically recommend taking it at night, just once a day at night. And the reason is, ideally, it's nice to eliminate first thing in the morning. This is the best thing to do. Not everybody does, not everybody, there's unique versions of that. But ideally, if you take the Triphala at night and then wake up in the morning and drink a nice glass of water, that can get the peristalsis going, and you can eliminate and start your day clear like that. If that's not the case, if you're sort of sometimes in the morning, sometimes not, you might want to add a little extra Triphala and even maybe throw in 200-300 milligrams of magnesium, and that'll get things going in the morning. The time of day that the large intestine is most empowered is between about 5 and 7 in the morning. It's really, that's when the body, is sort of designed by nature to eliminate. And, not everybody does, but, if you're close to that, that's ideal.
Interesting. This might be a little bit of oversharing, but I took Triphala earlier today, and then I don't usually pass stool in the afternoon. I usually exclusively do it in the morning, albeit later than between 5 and 7, because I don't really wake up as early as that. So do you think that would have been a good thing?
When you're waking up.
Huh? Say again?
I'm teasing you. I said, now you're sharing too much about when you wake up. I'm sorry, what's your question though?
My question is does Triphala help expel waste products in the body, like stool?
Yeah, Triphala is really cool because it's not a laxative. It doesn't act like a laxative. Like a laxative will irritate the linings of the intestines And that's what makes the body go. Triphala doesn't do that, but it's nourishing, it's strengthening for the intestine. And so it will, at a certain point, it will generally increase elimination. So that's probably what happened.
Oh, interesting.
You know, when you're cleansing, you want to eliminate a little bit more completely. And triphala is something you can continue. It's not like, you know, there's the herb senna, for instance, and senna is a laxative and an irritant, and it's addictive for the intestines, but triphala is not.
Interesting. I'm to be honest, like personally, I'm fascinated by herbs, and it's something that I want to look into a lot at some point. I once had someone really into Western herbalism, and it was amazing. She stayed with us for like 1 week, and the amount of like plants that I would walk past every day that she pointed out are like helpful for things. It just really shows you. And so I think it's, yeah, I think this cleanse is a really good opportunity to incorporate like these healing herbs, more of these amazing healing herbs into our routines, you know, into the things that we consume. I always remember, and I don't remember very, very many like shlokas or quotations, but I remember in the Bhagavad Gita how Krishna says, "I'm the healing herb."
Yeah, I totally I resonate with that. I was just thinking of that verse myself. So yeah, it's, you know, it's God's medicine. You know, I mean, even though this is the material world, but Krishna created the material world complete in and of itself. You know, Om Purnamata Purnamidam, complete for the living entities to both forget Krishna. If we want to forget, we have full facility here in the material world to forget, but he also gives us full facility if we want to remember. And Ayurveda is a system of medicine that is aligned with the remembering process. You know, if we want to, you know, to whatever degree we're looking for self-realization, but if we want to do those things that are in alignment with the laws of nature and with God's laws, then there's natural medicine. And, you know, I don't have any real problem with Western medicine. I just have a problem with the wrong use of it, or the overemphasis of it. Or if, you know, if somebody's saying you can only do this and you can't do this because this is what modern science is saying, and, you know, the natural stuff hasn't been proven, so, you know, you're going to go to jail if you recommend it. This is a very, very imbalanced Kali Yuga situation. You know, I've used Western medicine at times when I've had to, no doubt. You know, fight fire with fire when you have to. But the more we can, you know, take God's medicine, the better.
Awesome.
Yeah, I need to go in just a couple minutes, so
I'm going to whiz through these last questions. Okay, next question. Someone is asking, can you recommend supplements, herbs for managing hypoglycemia and also increasing energy, please?
Yeah, again, all these things are very individual because, you know, what's going on, but there's a bitter melon is very good. Gymnema is very good for blood sugar. There is the argument too that cleaning up the decreasing ama or toxin in the cells helps the cells utilize sugar much more effectively. So, you know, we have a cell and we have insulin. So you have maybe some natural sugar in the blood. It's even broken down from carbohydrates or fruit or any food, really. And then the insulin carrying that sugar to the cell, and now it's knocking on the door of the cell and saying, open up. But if that cell is covered with toxins, then you're going to knock and the cell's not going to hear it. You're going to knock, and we need more insulin. Let's not. And guess what? The insulin is irritating. It has an acidic, almost like corrosive property to it. And now it's knocking again, knocking again. Finally, the cell opens up and the cell takes in the sugar. So decreasing AMA or toxin is also going to be good for blood sugar issues. So it's not just balancing the blood sugar, it's also increasing the health of the cell. You want the cells to be receptive. But if the cell is happy and squeaky clean, then, you know, insulin comes, a little bit insulin, and the cell says, sure, come on in, no problem. It's like my son was traveling in America, he was down south, he said everybody was so friendly. Yeah, come on in. And everybody's inviting, you know, up in New England where we are, it's like, who are you? You know, no one trusts anybody, you know. But in the South still, they call it Southern hospitality. Come on into my house. I don't even know who you are. You know, have a seat. Nice to meet you. So you want your cells to be more like Southern hospitality, where they just they let in those nutrients and they let in that insulin, and let in that sugar to feed and this is good sugar to feed the cell with good energy. So toxin, clean living, good for the cells, and also, like I said, gym Nima, very good. It's like the word gym, like going to the gym. Nima, N-E-M-A, gym Nima. And then also bitter melon, also very good for blood sugar. And also it helps the cell be more receptive to insulin. Gym Nima also is some studies have shown that even a pancreas that is starting to not function very well actually nourishes the cells of the pancreas. So it can be very helpful. And energy, one of my favorite herbs for energy, you know, anybody over 40 would be ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is very good. And rhodiola. Rhodiola is a very good herb also. Ashwagandha is your classic Ayurvedic anti-vata, nourishing, strengthening herb. Ashwagandha is cool too because you can take it at night before you go to sleep. It'll help you sleep, but you can take it during the day and it's nourishing and strengthening and grounding.
What about for under 40 ashwagandha?
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's fine. For young virile men, it could agitate a little bit. And you just have to see how it affects someone. If all of a sudden you take it and you're feeling, you know, a younger man starting to feel very agitated, then it could be the ashwagandha.
Interesting. Yeah. One
of the definitions of ashwagandha is a man who is built like a horse.
Interesting. Shall I quickly move on to the next question? Do you have time? So someone's asking about like fruits like apples and oranges during the cleanse. So I guess we've got one side of the berries which are very good. We've got things like watermelon and grapes that we're trying to completely avoid. So is there like a middle ground, like apples, oranges, kiwis?
Yeah, apples in the fall would be okay. It's a seasonal fruit. They grow in the fall. Oranges are more, believe it or not, are more of a winter fruit. And because so many people have citrus sensitivity, that we tend to minimize that. And they also are very high in sugar, oranges. You know, having said that, they're a good fruit, but for the fall, we don't really recommend it. And one thing that we know is citrus at night should not be drunk. It should only be had in the morning.
Interesting. Citrus at night. Okay. Okay, last question we have on here. What else can we do to increase ojas?
I mean, there are herbs, astragalus. I mean, you might say astragalus there, I'm not sure. You know, some devotees are open to medicinal mushrooms, some aren't. But one of the best would be called cordyceps. CORDYCEPS. Cordyceps is an amazing mushroom, actually, that's very beneficial for the lungs and the adrenals, the adrenal glands, astragalus. And then calming vata, decreasing overexertion, getting good rest. You know that slogan, what is it? Random acts of kindness. Do a random act of kindness every day, at least, once a day. So things like that are very good for the ojas. Slowing down a little bit, at least for part of your day, just like slow it down. And then things like, what is it? Gosh, I'm forgetting it in Ayurveda. Chawanprash. Chawanprash is your classic ojas enhancer. The problem with Chawanprash is that it does have jaggery, has a lot of sugar in it. For some people, it's too much sugar. But, that's a very good ojas enhancer. Ghee is very good for ojas.
Mm.
Ghee is very good. So moderate ghee. And just remember with ghee, if you have a little fire, a little bit of ghee will stoke the fire. A bucket of ghee will put it out. So too much ghee is not a good thing, but a little bit of nourishing is very good.
Mm. So would you err on recommending ghee during the cleanse if it's like a minimal amount?
Actually recommend this, but like in all the recipes that you guys have for khichdi, for instance, the amount of ghee that isn't in that recipe, the original recipe that if it would be used for the general populace, it would be about 3 or 4 times much more ghee. So for these recipes, it's just a moderate amount relative to what most traditional khichdi recipes might have. So it's really a lot less ghee. So ghee is penetrating, and it will pull the medicinal properties of the herbs into this. So that's why I really like ghee in the recipes, but not too much.
Not too much. Okay. I think that's all of our questions.
If you guys have any other questions, then we can certainly, answer them on the and I realize I could probably speak back some of the answers if they're more, involved. I'm happy to do that too.
Sorry, what was that last thing? You could what back?
I could answer those questions on the Total Life Cleanse thread. If anybody has questions, and I may speak them back or write them back, whatever. So.
Ah, nice. Yeah, that is really nice. Yeah, that Total Life Cleanse chat for those in it. It's just open for anyone to ask about anything. Don't be shy. And if you're not in it, you want to be in it, please message me. In fact, I'm gonna put the joining link in the chat, and you'll have a moment. If you just click on this link, it will automatically add you to this group. I know quite a few people already have, but some on here aren't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So I need to get going, actually.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, everybody. It's a pleasure being with all you devotees and sharing this with the devotees. And I hope you stay on it and keep going, and look forward to talking to you later this week.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Really appreciate it. Vancha kalpa turubhyascha kripa sindhu bhayavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you.